Views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Blue Ridge PBS, the Virginia Department of Education, or the Virginia Society for Technology and Education. Blue Ridge PBS, in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with VISTI, the Virginia Society for Technology and Education, is talking to leading educators about what gets them energized and how technology is being used to inspire student engagement. This is Activated Learning.
I've been a lawyer. I've had another career. It wasn't the most rewarding profession in the world from a standpoint of psychic income, right? And teaching is the most amazing profession in that term. And if you want to be able to go into a career where you can sit there and you can see the difference you're making every single day by somebody learning something, by somebody enjoying something, just by light bulbs going off, like you get those every single day.
Every year, the Virginia Department of Education bestows the statewide Teacher of the Year award on one educator chosen from 8 finalists, one from each of the superintendent's regions in the state. My guest today is Matt Neal of Hidden Valley High in Roanoke County, the region's 6th finalist and eventual winner of the 2026 Virginia Teacher of the Year award. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing really well, and I should go ahead and say to our viewers that you're here like the day before kids show up for the new school year. As you get ready for this year and you're all set for your kids, what are you kind of hoping this school year looks like?
I mean, it's just a really exciting school year, obviously, because I'm going into it with this award, which is a huge honor. And I have to admit that, it has reinvigorated me in a few of my passions that I kind of had put aside for a couple years that I'm looking forward to bringing back this year, one of which is really bringing community wellness topics into the classroom, which I'm really, really excited about. And I think that combined with, having students that are excited to come in and learn is just, what is going to make the 2025-2026 school year just really, really amazing.
I know you had an interesting path to where you are now to becoming a teacher. What was your path to becoming a teacher? And when you were a kid, did you think that being in a classroom was in the cards for you?
After going through the typical, boy, I want to be a superhero and then an astronaut and then a fireman and all those kind of things, I kind of settled on wanting to be an attorney. I always had watched, kind of law shows, the ones, the kind
courtroom dramas.
Courtroom dramas. The Practice, sure. I think, is one that I remember watching as a kid. And just thinking that, being a trial lawyer was going to be a really cool thing. And that's what took me from VCU, where I did my undergrad, to the University of Kentucky, where I did my law degree. But I do come from a family of educators. My dad is a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in the genetics department. My brother is a statistical geneticist at Harvard. So there's that. And then my mother worked for the Department of Education in kind of testing for non-traditional facilities for a while as well. So I went in to undergrad with the idea that, teaching is something I am interested in, but with a desire to go to law school. So I just kind of went into a theater, English, and speech education degree at Virginia Commonwealth University.
Well, that's a good one because it can take you in a lot of places and is good for that pre-law. Yeah. Does the experience of being an attorney, how does that kind of color or impact your teaching now?
Yeah, I mean, I think being comfortable, learning some attorney skills will definitely benefit you in the classroom, like learning how to be persuasive. Especially me as an English 10 teacher, I actually talk about, the rhetorical triangle and how to use ethos, logos, and pathos effectively. So I do think that, that courtroom kind of background as a trial lawyer does help. I do find that kids are some of the time better cross-examiners than other attorneys I went against. And they like to use the word bro a lot more, right. Yeah, I mean, yes, I think it has definitely helped me. And also just the comfort of just being up in front of people and teaching. I mean, I do think the courtroom prepares you for things like that.
So much of teaching is thinking on your feet and adapting and adjusting to what's happening around you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially I kind of talk about that in the high school classroom, like conversations and things can go in all different directions, especially if you're like an English and a history teacher, because as they say, history repeats itself, and then obviously literature. Often, when we teach literature, we want kids to kind of like think about the themes of that literature, maybe apply them to their own lives or the world outside. So yeah, you have to be ready to think on your feet and steer it in the direction that the kids take the conversation, or you want the conversation to go.
Right. So English 10, it's been a while since I was in high school, and so I don't really remember what the theme or the main focus of English 10 is. So what are you teaching this year?
So right now, I mean, our big focus is obviously teaching them writing skills. We will look at 3 different essays. We'll look at a persuasive essay, we'll look at an argumentative essay, and then we'll look at an analytical essay, and we'll kind of talk about the differences between those 3. And then there's kind of a focus in the literature that it's literature with cultural connections, literature from other countries, literature from Americans experiencing things in other countries, or just kind of a cultural flair to the different literature.
I know just from reading about you and the application materials that went to the department for your teaching award was that one of the reasons you went into teaching was to give you a chance to have a life with your family. So tell me about your family a little bit.
Yes. So I have been, I'm actually, I have a blended family. I've been married to my wife. It will be 10 years in January now. We have 3 amazing kids. One who actually is a sophomore at the University of Kentucky right now. She's getting ready to head off on Friday, so we'll be driving to Lexington to get her moved in for her sophomore year. I have a senior at Lord Botetourt High School, and then I have a junior at Hidden Valley High School. So it's interesting having a child in the same building that you're teaching at, but it's also really cool too.
Right. Talk to me about Hidden Valley. I mean, of course, I live in Roanoke, so I know about it, but our viewing area is much larger than Roanoke. So tell me about Hidden Valley High School.
So Hidden Valley is just an amazing place to work, as is Roanoke County. I've worked in a couple different schools in Roanoke County now. Hidden Valley is the second school I worked at. I originally worked at Cave Spring High School. It's on, southwest of Roanoke. It is a really, really great place to work. There are amazing teachers in that building. One of the things that blew me away the most about winning the 2026 Virginia Teacher of the Year is that I was the first Roanoke County teacher to win that while they were a Roanoke County teacher.
That's kind of hard to believe. I started teaching in Roanoke County, and as many great educators as there have been there.
And that's what blows my mind completely. Like, I work with amazing teachers day in and day out in my building, let alone in the county, right? So that was incredibly humbling that I was the first, but also kind of amazing to me that there hadn't been a Roanoke County teacher prior to me, because, as I said, and I get to see that in action because I've got a kid, right? And he's in the building, and he's at the Burton Center, as well as at Hidden Valley, and I'm blown away by some of the stuff he's doing in his other classes. I think it's amazing, and I think the educators there are top notch.
Yeah, and the Burton Center is the career and technical ed
right.
part of Roanoke County high schools. Whose kids can go there, and I know that we have folks here in the building who've learned a lot of what they know there. Teaching isn't on, I don't know, maybe it is on some of your students, kind of checklist of what they might want to do. I think the profession is often not treated with the respect that I, of course, think it should have, since I was a teacher too. But what's your pitch if a kid were to express interest in being a teacher? What would you say to them?
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one of the things that we're looking at, and I think you just hinted at it a little bit, is you always used to hear teaching is a noble profession. And you don't hear that as much as you used to anymore. I do think that part of that isn't just, it's society right now, positions that have authority to a degree and command, like police officers and politicians and teachers are in that group of people who have kind of a command over a classroom, over students, things like that. I think there has kind of been a lowering of respect for a various amount of reasons, But I think one of the biggest things is that I think we need to really start to get people to believe that this is a noble profession. And I think it's an amazing profession. I think it's definitely a noble profession. But I think that we need to get our students that are interested in teaching, remind them of that. And also the thing that I will tell them is, I've been a lawyer. I've had another career. It wasn't the most rewarding profession in the world from a standpoint of psychic income, right? And teaching is the most amazing profession in that term. And if you want to be able to go into a career where you can sit there and you can see the difference you're making every single day by somebody learning something, by somebody enjoying something, just by light bulbs going off, like you get those every single day. And that's why, to me, it is the greatest profession that anyone could ever want to do, because the reward on watching kids grow, and then also, for me, become a better version of me, right? Like, I want kids to become better citizens, better versions of us. So if somebody tells me they're interested in it, like, I get really, really excited, especially some of the students that have actually approached me, because I think they're brilliant, and I think they're going to go out and be amazing teachers. So I want to model what I think is a good teacher to them, and then just take it and build on it, which I know they will.
Well, and the other big part, the rewarding part of being a teacher, and I'm sure you've taught long enough now that you experience this, are those grocery store moments, or reading about one of your kids in a newspaper, or seeing what they've done. Tell me a little bit about that psychic reward that you get that's generational.
Yeah, I mean, when I won the award, like, the most enjoyable part of it was going through the Facebook comments of my former students and them talking about it, learning that I made a difference. And some of the time, some of the students that just didn't really enjoy high school, always wanted to go out into the field and wanted to get into the working field as soon as possible, and hearing them and them talk about it. One of the most impactful moments was, I have a former student of mine who's gone on to have a very successful career in being a general contractor. And he remembered that I always said that there were amazing ways to enjoy life, and that you didn't always have to go down a college path. You could go down a technical path. You could go do that. And he said that, to hear a teacher sit there and say, hey, you can have success beyond academia, right? All the time, is a constant message in his classroom, and that how I talked about how hard work was often one of those best attributes to have, and that I thought that that was the number one thing for success. And for him to come back and be like, you believed in me, you knew that I could do it, and I mean, he's doing amazing. And so it's just stories like that. And you're right, the grocery store moments where you run into a kid and you remember their name, and they're surprised you remember their name. But I mean, I think that's just some of the time what we do our best to, is because every single one of our students is different and special and exciting, and that's one of the best things about it.
Well, and I think we do, society puts a big premium on that college prep. We're going there. Although I don't know if you've noticed it, but in the last few years, I have sensed the scale balancing out a little bit more in terms of valuing trades, valuing other skills that kids can bring to it, that I think brings more kids into school and an interest in school than just that focus on college.
Yeah, I mean, we're building a brand new center of technology. Burton is, we obviously have Burton right now, but they're getting a brand new building, and I think they're expanding some of their technical programs. And I just think that that's really, really important. We need skilled laborers in this country just as much as we need.
And there will always be work for
right.
somebody who knows how to do something that the rest of us don't know how to do, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's going to be great.
To the award, I know that the department is always trying to encourage, the Department of Education, Virginia Department of Education, always trying to encourage school divisions to encourage people to apply. Is there anything you can say kind of to administrators and also teachers someone might come up to them and say, I think you might be a person we want to nominate for the Teacher of the Year. There is an application process. You're going to have to do these things, but what can you say to kind of encourage teachers and other educators to submit their work for this award?
it's two words: your students. In Roanoke County, we are nominated for what we call the Golden Apple, which is the Roanoke County Teacher of the Year. That nomination can come from your fellow faculty members. It can come from parents. It can come from students. It can come from community members. But you have to be nominated. And then if you are selected after you put in your application and you're selected to be a finalist, then there is a pretty lengthy portion where you have to make a video of yourself teaching. And I know that that's not necessarily easy, right? I mean, that's time consuming to do all those things. But what you have to realize is, and this is the most important thing, is if you are nominated by a student, you are nominated by a parent, you are nominated by a fellow faculty member, they want you to win, right? So when you apply for these things, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your building, you're doing it for your community, but most importantly, you're doing it for your students just as well, because this is an award that I didn't just win. I won this award because I have amazing students and an amazing building and an amazing school and an amazing community that got behind me and nominated me and pushed me to be the best version of myself. And that's what I would tell anybody that goes to apply this. Like, you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for everyone.
This is Activated Learning.
GoTech stands for Great Opportunities in Technology and Engineering Careers. We give middle school students across the Commonwealth meaningful hands-on experiences in industry-relevant pathways, so pathways like advanced manufacturing, and those activities that we do with students are supposed to spark interest, get them engaged, getting them wanting to learn more, and also starting to build skills and concepts that help them continue down those training pathways.
Manufacturing today is very different than it was back in 20, 30 years ago.
Our manufacturing engineering unit has been one where we kind of tailor it to the regional needs. So if it's food and beverage manufacturing, we're making sure we're focusing on that. If it's pharmaceutical manufacturing, there's a focal point on that.
Subscribe to the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Blue Ridge PBS Echo TV.
Did you learn anything about yourself and your teaching through having to do that work to submit?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I mean, I was nominated for the Golden Apple several times. I always laughed. The first time I was nominated, I was about 3 years in. And I remember, like, not knowing too much about it because I was only a third year teacher, and I got,
by year 3, you're just starting to figure out what your job is.
Right,
too.
yeah, right. You're just starting to formulate more of your, you beg, borrow, and take from everybody else and unlearn, and then you start to develop your own. And you're kind of year 3. I won this thing. I mean, I was nominated for this thing, and I made it to. I was invited. I was a finalist. And I remember that the person that won was an elementary school teacher who did this amazing, like they talked about this amazing bartering thing that they did where they were teaching the kids about bartering and how that worked. And they had goats and sheep and other things in there. They'd done all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there going, wow, like this is like the work that I have to get to. And then how can I get livestock in my classroom? Like, no, just kidding, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it was just mind blowing to watch him and what he had done and really learn. And then I got nominated a few more times, and I just kept going. And then eventually, like I said, I won it last year, and we know where I am today. But yeah, I learned like by being in a room of amazing people, even until the very moment where I won Teacher of the Year, I was surrounded by 7 other amazing finalists and learned a little bit about them when I was in the room. And
right, and talk about the day of that you won the award. I know all the finalists go to Richmond, and you're there with the governor and the head of the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you?
The range of emotions, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like polarizing emotions, right? You're excited, but you're nervous, right? You're elated and you feel elevated when you win, but you're also humbled by the fact that you just sat in a room with 7 other amazing people, and then they decided, like, you're the winner, and you're like, wow. But meanwhile, I'm sitting there the whole day looking at all these other people and being like,
inspirational.
Yeah, they're all inspirational, and I'm just sitting there going, I'm incredibly humbled now at this point.
Tell me about that favorite teacher from our own childhood, and I always also like to give people the opportunity to talk about that teacher, and maybe someone who led by a different kind of example, who was a teacher who was not inspirational that made you think, if I ever do this, I'm going to do it better? But let's start with the one, is there a teacher that comes to mind who?
There are a few. I grew up in Short Pump, Virginia,
Sure.
before there was a mall there. It was a while ago. And I went to Mills Godwin High School. I had a Latin teacher. I had several amazing teachers, but Mr. Weimer, the Latin teacher, always stood out to me because he was such a great storyteller of the Greek and Roman mythology. We would learn the Latin, we would do the stuff, and then we would get the mythology story time. And I just remember that he was just this amazing storyteller. But he would also do a really good job of like taking those themes and talking about himself. And I think that's so important because I think as a teacher, like you do have to humanize yourself to your students because you got to form those relationships. I always talk about teaching. It's 60% teaching, 40% buy-in is kind of how I look at it. Like I've got to teach the material, but I've also got to get the kids to buy into me as a person and to make me relatable and enjoyable for them so that they do get the learning. And he was a master at that.
I know that you believe in something called the ASK method. Tell me what I'm assuming that's an acronym, and let's talk about the ASK method.
Approachable, set standards, and kindness. This isn't something that I came up with like as I was doing these applications.
Sure.
This is something that kind of I generated over probably the last decade or so that is really kind of grown. The kindness part has changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years because I think now more than ever, it's so important to be kind to children because of technology and things like that. One of the things I talk about when I talk about kindness is that, when we were kids, when I was a kid, like we didn't always get invited to everything. Like, my friend might have said, "Oh, I'm going to play pickup basketball and I need 10 guys." And I was the 11th.
But you didn't know, right?
I didn't know. Like
right.
I didn't know, right? Or I did know later and it was like a, fleeting thought, "Oh, well, I didn't." But now, like if that kid doesn't get invited to something, they are then watching people on social media talk about how excited they are to do it. And then they're watching it on social media as the kids play or make TikToks about what they're doing and all hanging out. And then they're on social media again, reliving it after it's over. So they're missing out not once and not in a fleeting thing of, "Oh, I didn't get invited to that. Oh, well," right? But they're missing out before, during, after. And I think that can be tougher. So I think it is really, really important that we model kindness now to our kids and to our students, and that we make sure that they always feel like they are accepted and needed to be great citizens as they go forward in society. And I think that starts with being kind to one another.
Yeah, when I taught, social media didn't exist. When I was in the classroom,
right? Yeah,
it didn't exist yet. Kids are under almost an unimaginable pressure now. We've addressed social media a little bit, but also just let's talk about some of the things when we talk about how kids today aren't, what we imagined ourselves to be as children. Kind of how awesome they are in the face of all they're facing right now.
They live in a world that's very different than ours. They live in a world where they want instant gratification and surface learning. And we have to still teach delayed gratification, and we still have to teach deeper learning. They are used to getting things like this right away, right? But we all know like that things like relationships, careers, schooling take time, and it isn't always an instant gratification.
It's not linear.
And it's not linear. Yes, it goes, in waves and peaks and valleys and all those kind of things. And they're almost, because of what they see out there, like the projected image that they see in social media, they're out there looking at things thinking that they have to be perfect and get things right and know it every single moment, every single minute, instantly, because that's what they see. That's what is mirrored to them through those screens. And we have to kind of now tweak our lessons. We have to change them a little bit. And, we have to get these kids to still appreciate these things when it isn't necessarily the norm for them. And the pressures that they're facing feels it's got to be different.
I think that's true, and I think even we've got about 3 minutes left here, so I could talk to you forever, but we're going to use the most of our 3 minutes that we have. Even if you just look at a picture of 8th graders, say, in 1975 versus 8th graders today, it's shocking, how much more put together they appear, right? And I think that is that social media kind of thing. I know that you've also worked with the Prevention Council. Maybe talk a little bit about what that is and why that's important at your school and all schools to talk about the issues that come up there.
Yeah, so community wellness is a huge thing for me. I think I hinted at that at the very beginning. I'm going to give you a very quick version of that. But in 2019, I read Dope Sick. That's a very impactful book in this area.
I'm just going to say, written by my wife, Beth Mason.
All right, there you go. Yeah. And I taught 2 of those kids.
Right.
So that had a huge impact on me. So I did this huge opioid awareness initiative. We brought in 9 different guest speakers. I had about almost 10 faculty members also participating with me. And it was a really, really great thing. And we really did make a difference. Our statistics teacher ran some statistics that showed a large increase in kids that started to talk to a trusted adult about opioids and things like that from before we did it and then to after, which was amazing. But the other thing is, how sustainable is that? That it's very difficult to, year after year, get 8 guest speakers, get 10 things. So this year, I have worked with Roanoke County, and we are doing, with our persuasive essay, we're going to model this at Hidden Valley High School, but with our persuasive essay that we've got to do for the SOL requirement, we're going to bring in one of the options as a community wellness topic. This year, we're going to talk about predatory marketing by THC and vape companies, about how they target teens and children with, kind of similar to how, the Marlboro Man and Joe Camel did with cigarettes back in the day, right? So we're going to be talking about that. And in this thing, we have the flexibility to change that topic, year after year. Maybe it'll be cell phones. Maybe it'll be,
creating
driving.
a framework so that you can talk about these really difficult issues with these kids year after year and make it sustainable. And that's a powerful, powerful thing. And I know you guys were kind of held up at Hidden Valley as this epicenter. Of course, it's going on everywhere nationally. But what a great response to that. And with that, we don't have a lot of time left, but Matt Neal, just want to thank you for coming on the program. And I want to tell our folks at home that if you have an interest in nominating one of your teachers, encouraging a teacher, depending on the school division where you are, or if you're a teacher and you'd like to know more about the Virginia Teacher of the Year program, the Department of Education website can get you all set up on that. And
Activated Learning is produced by Blue Ridge PBS in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with VISTE, the Virginia Society for Technology and Education.
This podcast is hosted and produced by Tom Landon, Director of Educational Innovation,
with lots of help from graphic and audio designer Jay Prater.
Additional support provided by Andy Depew in our podcast studio.
Our Vice President of Education is Dr. Rose Martin.
Special thanks to Calypso Gilstrap
at the Virginia Department of Education.
Our credits are read by students at Westside and Highland Park Elementary Schools in Roanoke, Virginia.
If you like what you hear, subscribe to Activated Learning wherever you get your podcasts, or watch the Echo channel at blueridgepbs.org.